In last week's episode, we talked about Godwin's Law, Lewis's Law, and Poe's Law. I claimed that the wage gap is real and said that egalitarianism is a men's rights project. We got a lot to talk about. I know that the very popular statistic that women make 77 cents to every dollar that men make is one that has been debunked in a lot of situations. I have seen those posts and those papers. They're very interesting. But that doesn't necessarily mean that there isn't something that resembles a wage gap that still exists. Because a lot of the support for the disappearance, the claimed disappearance of the wage gap is that a man and a woman who both have been working for the same amount of time, have the same education, and have the same responsibilities make essentially the same amount of money. And that situation is one that in reality, as it turns out, is very hard to come by. That for all kinds of reasons, it is unlikely that, say, a man and a woman who are the same age will have the same responsibility, the same background, the same education, and that there are all kinds of cultural, societal factors that keep that from being the case, and so it can make something that resembles a wage gap. So there are some statistics about, after 16 years, 2 MBA graduates, 1 male and 1 female who were classmates, if the woman, say, takes time off to have a child, that can contribute to something like a 55% wage gap later in their careers. So that is the kind of thing that I'm talking about when I say that the wage gap is real. And if you want to know more about it, I wrote a long thing. We'll put a link to it in the doobly-doo. It does have research. There are sources. So if you want to take a look at the numbers, please do. It's all there. Relatedly, asking for sources does not make you a bad person. That is not a thing I mean to imply. Rather, I think that a lot of times in a lot of these conversations, there can be an over-reliance on statistics where they don't really get to the heart of some matters. There are some problems that statistics either don't describe or don't describe fully, because a lot of times we're talking about how people feel or how things seem, and these are very subjective problems. They are based in people's subjectivity. And also, I think that there is a tendency for people to expect that the other side of an argument educate them about their position, when ideally we are aware of the premises and the foundations of the positions that run counter to ours. The frustration comes, I think, from the fact that a lot of times asking for research or sources feels like a diversionary tactic, that we're no longer talking or arguing about the thing that we're arguing about. We're now talking about gathering sources, which, when these arguments happen on the internet, whether or not it's on YouTube or on Tumblr or on Reddit, it's very much an in-the-moment kind of thing. And so, from my perspective, I think one of the better things to do is to say, oh, I'm unfamiliar with this, I haven't formed an opinion on it, I'm gonna have to go do some research. If there are things that you think I should see that are important for me to know how to argue with this, then I want to know about them. Can you tell me about them? But I think it's maybe disingenuous, to expect that that the other side of an argument, someone who counters your position, is going to also teach you about their position. I don't know how other people feel about that, but I feel pretty strongly. And really, I think this is also related to Lewis's Law, and this is something that I really should have predicted, and I'm very upset with myself that I didn't. That when I think we talk about Lewis's Law being that comments on articles or things about feminism justify feminism, from my perspective, what that doesn't mean is that anyone who disagrees is automatically wrong. I think really what it means is that there tend to be comments which show attitudes that are indicative of the kinds of stuff that feminism is trying to address. These are comments like, get back in the kitchen, that's just the way things are, women don't have it so bad. But I think that there are a lot of really fair criticisms of feminism. There are criticisms of feminism that I have, and I think that those are things like, feminism is not inclusive enough. Feminism seems to lack consistency, and this is both confusing and unpleasant. There are legions of people on Tumblr who appear to be using feminism as a bludgeon. I think that all of these things are very, very fair criticisms of feminism, ways that you can disagree with it, where you are not somehow proving or reinforcing the set of attitudes that feminism as a methodology is trying to address. Which brings us finally to my statements about egalitarianism. I want to emphasize that I am legitimately confused about a lot of the stances and politics surrounding egalitarianism. And I think that this is a multi-part problem. In my mind, there are, of course, all kinds of problems that are experienced by all kinds of people throughout the world. And my stance is that feminism is appropriate for addressing a lot of them. And I believe that feminism is appropriate for addressing problems experienced by women and problems experienced by men. And I realize that there are a lot of people who do not believe that. And that is great and fine, and that's how the world works. And the last thing I want to do is to take down a group of people in such a way that it makes it seem like I'm telling them that their beliefs are wrong, or that they are not entitled to them. And most of all, I don't want to do it in a way where it's not friendly. And last episode, not friendly. It wasn't friendly. Regardless of my personal politics, Idea Channel is a place to encourage friendly conversation, and there were no shortage of things from last week's video that really transgressed that aim. That doesn't mean that we can't talk about political things, and it doesn't mean that we can't talk about these big, sort of, I don't know, almost incendiary topics, but it means that it's my responsibility to start them in a place that sets the tone, and making fun of people is not a good way to set a tone for a friendly conversation. So that was absolutely my bad. I've actually been thinking a lot about, and this is gonna seem like it comes out of left field, Tyler Oakley, who I love and whose videos I love, but I also love the fact that Tyler is so welcoming. He's so welcoming and understanding and has this nuance when talking about things that might less than charitably be labeled social justice concerns. And I think that that's a thing that I tend to forget sometimes, that I am fully guilty of the judgmental feminist stereotype. And I like to think that I will actually learn my lesson now that I've learned it. I think this is maybe the 4th or 5th time that we will accomplish a lot more if we start these conversations from a place of respect and nuance, and not just, being mad that the other side is wrong when, the other side is not wrong, it's just another side. Like I get mad about things, I take stuff personally, but there is a time and a place for that. I can go out and have beers with my friends and say, and another thing that this guy on the internet said, but not on Idea Channel, which is, like I said, it's a place where we should be able to come together and have these productive conversations. So, I'm gonna try real hard to do more of that in the future, and I hope that for both sides of this very complicated debate that we can help each other figure that thing out. That we can be tolerant, we can be calm, and if I can set the right tone, I think that we can actually feel like we're accomplishing something, which is what I want to do. So, yeah. Thanks. Maybe in advance, but definitely for watching this far.